I had never been the type to think much about strange coincidences or unsettling signs, but that night changed the way I looked at every little sound, every shadow, every unexpected knock. For years, I had worked the night shifts with my best friend Tim at a tiny pizza shop that barely had space for more than a few tables. It wasn't a glamorous job, nor something we planned to do forever, but after getting hired in college, we somehow never left. Life in a quiet rural town didn't offer many opportunities anyway, and the pay wasn't terrible considering how slow business usually was. The nights were calm, we were allowed to play music, joke around, and sometimes we'd just sit behind the counter watching videos when orders stopped coming in. But that particular night, there was a storm outside, light thunder rumbling in the distance, rain tapping rhythmically against the glass, the kind of weather that made you want to stay inside and do nothing. We had barely received 3 or 4 orders the whole shift, and by 10 p.m. Tim suggested we begin cleaning early so we could clock out 15 minutes ahead of time. It wasn't unusual. Our manager rarely showed up at night, and if we left a little early, nobody cared. I grabbed a rag and started wiping down the tables while Tim swept the floor. Everything was calm, silent, except for the faint hum of the refrigerator and the muffled roar of the storm. But at 10:07 p.m., the phone rang. Not the cell phone, our landline, the front desk phone. Nobody called unless it was an order. I walked over and picked it up. "Hello, how can we help you today?" I said, but all I heard was dead air. Not static, not breathing, not even faint movement, just complete, hollow silence. I waited 5 seconds, then 10, and finally hung up. "Probably just some dumb prank," I muttered as I returned to the tables. I didn't think much of it until something outside caught my eye. Through the window, the rain made everything blurry, but I could still make out a car parked a few spaces away. It hadn't been there earlier. The lot was usually empty at this hour except for the occasional driver stopping by for takeout. But this car wasn't pulling in to order anything, it was just sitting there. A faint light glowed in the car, maybe from a cell phone or a small flashlight. I tried squinting to get a better look, but the rain streaking down the glass made everything distorted. Moments later, the phone rang again. This time Tim picked it up since he was closer. He said hello, then listened as someone spoke, though the voice on the other end was muffled, low, almost like whispering underwater. "Okay, got it. Thanks," Tim said before hanging up. Right then, the glowing light inside the parked car switched off, and the engine roared before the vehicle rolled away into the rain. "Who was that?" I asked. He shrugged casually. "Some old man ordering a delivery," but the explanation didn't sit right with me. Why would someone call us for delivery if they were parked right outside? It didn't make any sense. "Maybe he was outside because his phone doesn't get signal at home," Tim suggested. That was possible, I guessed, and I tried to push the weird feeling away. Tim prepared the pizza for the delivery, boxed it, and handed it to me. 11 minutes away, he said after checking the address. I grabbed my jacket, ran through the rain to my car, and plugged the address into Google Maps. The roads were completely empty, no other cars. No pedestrians, no signs of life, except the occasional porch light in the distance. The storm felt heavier the farther I drove, raindrops hammering against my windshield like tiny stones. After about 10 minutes, I turned into a quiet upscale neighborhood with large houses that looked expensive but old-fashioned. Map guided me down a long private driveway that led to a cul-de-sac with 3 branching driveways. I followed the one on the left and parked near a house with a wide porch and tall windows that were completely dark. Not a single light was on inside. I grabbed the pizza and ran up to the front door. "Hello, pizza delivery," I called out, knocking twice. Nothing. No footsteps approaching, no dogs barking, no TV noise, just silence and rain. I pulled out my phone and called Tim, asking him to try calling the customer. A moment later, he called me back, saying the guy didn't answer and the call went straight to voicemail. "Dead order," I muttered angrily as I jogged back to my car. It wasn't unusual, fake orders happened often, usually bored kids playing jokes. I tossed the pizza onto the passenger seat and drove back. When I returned, Tim was finishing up cleaning and said there were no new orders. I threw the unwanted pizza into the trash and began wiping the counter. That's when it happened. A loud, sharp bang echoed through the shop from the front door. Tim and I both froze. Then we ran toward the entrance. At first glance, everything looked normal, but then Tim pointed at a small crack on the glass door. I opened the door and saw a rock the size of a grapefruit lying on the ground, wet from the rain. Someone had thrown it hard, but the parking lot was empty. Not a single car, no movement, nothing but rain falling heavily. Tim suggested calling the cops, but neither of us wanted to deal with the hassle. We were close to clocking out anyway. and the crack wasn't huge. "We'll tell the manager tomorrow," Tim said. We quickly finished the closing tasks and left through the back door to the parking lot where our cars were. The drive home felt unusually quiet. The earlier weirdness to calls, the car, the fake order, the rock kept replaying in my mind, but I brushed it off as just a strange coincidence. I got home, went inside, and headed to the kitchen to grab a snack. Before I could open the pantry, I heard the sound of a car splashing through puddles outside. I walked to the window, peeked out, and froze. A car had parked right in front of my driveway. The same car, the same shape, same headlights, same dark windows. My heart dropped. What was even worse, the engine was still on. I couldn't see who was inside. My hands trembled as I dialed Tim. "I think that same car from work followed me home," I whispered. His reaction was immediate. "Call the cops right now. That's not normal." Hearing his urgency pushed me to do it. I hung up and dialed 911. The operator told me to stay hidden and wait. I stepped away from the window, heart pounding. Then I heard a car door slam shut. I peeked outside. A man dressed in dark clothing, a hoodie pulled tightly over his head, was walking slowly up my driveway. His face was hidden, but something about the deliberate way he moved made my stomach twist. Step, step, step. He got closer. Then he stopped near my window. Silence. The rain almost felt muted. A suffocating stillness filled the room. I didn't even breathe. Then, out of sheer anxiety or stupidity, I moved the curtain just a little. His face was right there, eyes staring directly into mine, cold, empty, inhumanly still. I dropped the curtain instantly. He began banging on the window, 3 heavy, violent bangs. I stumbled back, shaking, then nothing. Silence. I waited, too afraid to look again. When the police arrived, the man and the car were both gone, as if they had vanished into the night. I explained everything: the calls, the car at work, the fake delivery, the rock, the man following me home, but the officers exchanged skeptical looks. They didn't say I was lying, but they didn't believe me either. "Probably just some prank," one of them said casually, but I knew it wasn't a prank. Someone had followed me, someone who knew where I worked, where I lived, someone who had stood inches from me behind a thin glass window, staring at me like he already owned me. Something about that night never made sense, and even now, years later, I still don't understand the motive. Why me? Why follow me? Why throw the rock? Why the silent calls? Why the house with no lights? Why show up at my doorstep? I lost sleep for weeks, then months. Every sound made me flinch. Every car that slowed near my house made my heart race. I double-checked every lock twice before sleeping and started keeping a light on in every room, but even that wasn't enough. Because one night, long after the police stopped caring, and after Tim tried to convince me nothing else would happen, it did. At exactly 3:17 a.m., as I sat in my room scrolling through my phone trying to distract myself, the phone rang. Not my cell, the landline, my house phone. The line nobody called. The line only telemarketers ever used. The line that hadn't rung in months. Slowly, terrified, I picked it up. "Hello." At first, silence, then breathing, slow, deep, familiar. And then a whisper, raspy, distorted, dragging every word as if savoring it. The line went dead, and the nightmare began again.